This is our next lesson on the mass media, and we're looking at propaganda, politics and spin. How do politicians use the media to try and get inside our heads to convince them that what they're doing is right? So we're going to learn about these issues to understand how the mass media can manipulate people and again develop our critical thinking skills. Hopefully after this lesson, whenever you hear a message from a politician in future, you'll be more sceptical. And in fact, but you'll know why you're being sceptical. Okay, keywords: Hitler, Nazi, Goebbels, this guy here, democracy, pluralism, capitalism, neoliberalism, bias, proprietors, editors, gatekeepers, spin doctor, photo op, harass, harangue. Okay? Stuff from history. Democracy, people in charge. Pluralism, more than one organisation or group providing the media. So different newspapers, different owners. Capitalism, system we have in this country of free movement of labour, buying and selling things, businesses. Neoliberalism is an extreme type of capitalism. Neoliberals believe that capitalism should be completely free to do whatever it wants, so no rules from the government. Bias, that means proprietors. If you own a newspaper, you are known as its proprietor. If you own and run it, you're its proprietor. Editors, the guys who actually run newspapers on a day-to-day basis, are called the editors. Gatekeepers, if you control the entrance to something, you're its gatekeeper. Spin doctor, to do politics, to try and influence the media. Photo opportunity. Yeah. Politicians want to be photographed doing certain things. It makes them look good. It's called a photo op. If you harass and harangue, you're bugging somebody, you're bothering them, you're harassing them, you're haranguing them, you're shouting at them, you're abusing them, trying to get them to do what you want them to do. Okay, moving on. Let's start off with some stuff about the media as propaganda. The media can obviously be used to give a particular message. If in a country the government controls all of the media, they can use it to tell any message they want. And you don't have any other way of getting information. They can start lying to you if all the newspapers, all the TV stations tell you the same lie. How are you going to know it's a lie? It becomes propaganda. There, you only get it's biased. You only get one side of the argument. Now, historically, the most famous example you know about is Hitler, the Nazis, Germany, where they put lots of propaganda against Jews. Goebbels was the guy in charge of propaganda in Germany. The Nazis took over all the media. And so all the media, so posters, radio programmes, newspapers, books, movies, all put out stuff that said that the Jews are evil. After a while, if all you ever hear is the Jews are evil, you start to believe it. Other examples could be, what do they call Russia, Soviet Union. When this guy Lenin was in charge, they did exactly the same thing. They took over all the media and made sure the only message that the media gave out was the messages they wanted it to give out. So in Britain we don't have this. But we do have bias. Yeah? You haven't got to be a Marxist to figure out that the higher middle class control the media. All the journalists, all the editors, all the reporters, they're all middle class. So they're going to have some sort of middle-class bias. In particular, the newspapers have lots of a neoliberal bias. They believe the government shouldn't be involved, the government shouldn't give them rules to follow. Yeah. This is what Murdoch thinks. So there is a bias in Britain. It's a bias towards the upper middle class because they're in charge of the media. But how does it run exactly? Well, Murdoch is an Australian who lives in New York, runs a massive global empire. He's not in the Sun's office every day. So what he appoints gatekeepers. He appoints editors who run the newspapers, who will know what he wants and will do it for him without him having to tell them. So this guy here is Kelvin Mackenzie, yeah? Former editor of The Sun, not very popular in Liverpool. Because he knew that his boss, Murdoch, had a sort of neoliberal approach to things, he knew what to run. His journalists knew what he wanted, and he knew what he wanted, and so it got into the newspapers. So this guy was the one he controls, the gatekeepers control what goes in the newspapers. So he's the guy who controlled, during the Hillsborough stuff with Liverpool fans, he's the one who said, we're going to believe the coppers. We're going to believe that when these Liverpool fans died, it's their own fault. They urinated on police. They stole money out of the pockets of their dead friends. Yeah? They beat up the policemen trying to save football fans. All this has now turned out to be a complete lie. The police lied about it. But Mackenzie put it in the paper. Not Murdoch, he wasn't even there. But he would have okayed it. Yeah? Also, people like Murdoch, so Mackenzie knows that Murdoch wants certain people to win the election, so his newspaper will attack his enemies, and his newspaper will support his friends. Wherever he says, he does. Yeah. Finally on this, let's look at politics and spin. If you are a politician, you want the newspapers to write things about you that are good, are positive. You don't want them to publish stories on you that make you look bad. It's called spin. Try to spin the story in your favour. So this guy here is Alistair Campbell. He was the spin doctor, as they're called, for the Labour Party for a long time. Alistair Campbell. Famous story about him. During an election, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, not getting on, not friends at all, arguing, on the same side, but in private arguing. In order to get rid of this story, Campbell makes Blair buy Brown an ice cream in public and tells them to smile, to try and make them look like ordinary people, friendly blokes. Even though behind the scenes they were effing and blinding each other, he made sure the photo that appeared in the paper was a positive one. On the Conservative side, we have Andy Coulson. Here he is. Did the same sort of thing for David Cameron. So he organised the David Cameron cycling to work. Oh, he's cycling to work. He's an ordinary bloke. He's concerned about the environment. He doesn't like carrying. He isn't driving a car. This bit of spin didn't really work out very well because somebody else suspected this didn't look right. So you know what? Cameron is cycling to work, but just after he leaves his house on his bike, here he is. What happens? Somebody else comes out with all his stuff, his suit, his suitcase, his briefcase rather, his shoes, and this person then gets in his big car and drives behind him. So he's cycling to work, but his stuff is being driven there. Yeah? This is an example of spin going wrong. But basically for this bit, I understand that politicians want to try and spin things, make themselves look good at all times.